Hey guys, this is Kai here with Pure Investments. I'll be bringing you this week's weekly crypto review. Normally this would be brought to you by Bowen, but he's been a little bit tied up with some other stuff, and he asked if I could kind of take the reins for the week and run this all down for you guys. So hopefully I can live up to his standards of the review. Anyway, let's kind of jump into it here, and we'll start with Bitcoin. I believe on Bowen's last update was on the 20th, February 20th, which was right around that point where we were at this weird little pivot point of 11,800, which was very harsh critical resistance. And rightfully so, and I believe Bowen even mentions it in the video. We really didn't break out of that. It was a strong possibility. We seemed kind of overbought at that point. It was just something that needed to happen. We needed a small correction, but what ended up happening, and I'll kind of draw this down because it's a little bit hard to see on the daily chart. It's easier to see it on the 4-hour. But what ended up happening with that nice little dip here is you actually end up building this really nice ascending channel that Bitcoin's in right now. And you can kind of see the strength of this channel has been really nice. You had support here, and then we had that other support here as we kind of came down, and it's been a really nice channel that's formed. And I kind of predicted yesterday in our premium channel when we were up here around 11.6 that we would also be seeing I believe I said like a 2 or 3 day correction down to around 11.5 before finally having the steam to break up out of 11.8. Once we do see this 11.8 break, it's going to be a clear indication of the bull market. Right now, there's still a small chance that we could see another massive correction. By small, I mean maybe 5% chance. Right now, I really anticipate this channel to hold. There's no reason to think it wouldn't. As you can see on the 4-hour, we've kind of already had really nice consolidation. Standard RSI is down to 43. We've got Stoch RSI all the way down at 0 now. Everything's kind of looking good. VIX is actually indicating a buy right here. I do think we could still come down closer to 10.5. I believe the low on today is, as you can see here, around 10,580 right here, which is, right about where I anticipated. So everything is kind of looking good right now. At worst, I could see maybe a flash dip, one of those big daily flash dips that we've had the past, month or two, where we had these huge bottom wicks like here and here. I could see one of those possibly tomorrow down to around 9,500 as just, one last bear trap before we finally turn the market bullish. I don't anticipate it, but I could see it happening. Like there's a situation where that would just make sense. I wouldn't be shocked to see it happen by any means. But otherwise, right now we've got some good stuff going on. So if we go back into the daily chart here, I'm going to actually minimize this page if I can. There we go. Okay, so on the daily chart here, you can kind of see super trend, and it's an indicator that I'm really fond of for a multitude of reasons. But on longer term trends, it tends to have really nice indications, and you can kind of get an idea of that looking at this. There's a couple little fake outs here and there where it printed a sell and didn't end up panning out, but in the grand scheme of things, it tends to be pretty accurate, right? So if we go back to basically the start of the year, just about from the first buy that we printed back in February, right? And what we're going to do here is we're going to show you the date and the price movements. So every time we have printed a daily super trend buy, within the next 30 days, we have made the following moves, and they have been some pretty nice moves. We've basically made nearly a 50% gain within 30 days every time we've printed this daily super trend buy. And they seem to kind of expand as the year went on. So as you can see here, we had, 33%, which wasn't too crazy, but it also didn't have much of a correction after that, right? It kind of just went sideways. And then this next one was a 51% within the first month, but overall, that entire period was 147%. Same thing here. We had 100% movement after that super trend buy signal, and we ended up going 94% within the first month for a total at the high of 120% before the next correction. And if we keep showing this, you'll kind of start to realize the trend that I'm trying to show you here, which is basically that every single time last year that super trend has printed a buy, out of that buy has come extreme movement within 30 days. All right, so the smallest one, and there's only one of them, was a 30% gain. The rest of them have all been 70, 80%, usually more like 100% gains coming out of a super trend buy, right? So we just printed that 3 days ago. One other thing I'd like to note before I get too into this is that if you kind of, I have to expand because of the crazy movements we've had, but you'll notice actually that a lot of times these super trend buys are followed by 1 or 2 red days. 1, 2 red day, couple red days here, a couple red days here, but the general overall pattern is still up. So don't be discouraged by this red day we're currently in, because the history shows us that kind of it builds up the pressure to flip this super trend indicator into a buy, and then it kind of needs a small correction before it's able to keep moving. But anyway, the point is we're 3 days into a super trend buy right now, and just if we were to assume that it stays with that same pattern, we could be talking somewhere in the range of a 22, 23,000 mark within the next month or two before the next main correction. All right. And that's just something I kind of wanted to throw out there. It's something I kind of noticed the other day while I was looking at the charts, and I found it just a little interesting. It seems to be a really strong indicator for Bitcoin, and it's not to say it's guaranteed. It obviously could fail. But for the most part, every single time we've printed this indicator, except the one time at the very beginning of last year in February, we've made these huge movements upwards coming out of a super trend buy on the daily signal. So now with Bitcoin done, I kind of want to break into Ethereum and Litecoin and then some of the other altcoins, because these have been kind of bled out a little bit recently. And I feel like we're getting close to the market bottom, and I kind of want to showcase why. So we'll start with Ethereum. Looking at Ethereum right now, it's kind of in this really weird spot, and it's hard to gauge exactly what's going to happen right now. So last year when Ethereum had its huge run, and actually let me pull up the Bitfinex chart, as it doesn't have as many of these crazy wicks that Coinbase has. So anyway, last year during Ethereum's huge run up, right? It kind of ran with Bitcoin, and I'm curious to see if we're going to have that happen again. And if you look at them sort of side by side here, right? If we kind of go back to this April-May area here, right? So you can kind of see, and you can follow both lines. You can see how they line up, the little dotted lines there. But basically, these moves happened simultaneously. So this move on Ethereum happened basically at the same amount of time as Bitcoin's move, right? Like there was this little dip here at the start of the Bitcoin move. So for this little portion, we had, opposite movement like we've been seeing with the two of them. However, the remainder of the move, the part that started basically on, mid-April to early June, this entire portion of the move actually kind of happened. Oh, that's flipped. This entire portion of the move happened together. And I'm curious to see if that happens again, because recently Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum have all kind of been trading opposites each other. When Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum and Litecoin drop, and vice versa. When Bitcoin goes down, Ethereum and Litecoin pop. And I'm kind of waiting to see some form of signal that we're going to start trading together again, because I think it's going to happen. I just can't envision a scenario where Ethereum goes back down to like 0.02 or 0.03 Bitcoin because Bitcoin runs up to $22,000. I just don't envision that scenario. I think it's far more likely that what we end up seeing is Ethereum kind of run up to 0.12, 0.13, somewhere in that range, along with Bitcoin's rise, very similar to last year. We could even see, I know Miles had posted this video about the flippening. We could even see a flippening type of situation start to come up, similar to last year where we got to like 0.15, which was awfully close. And I can kind of show you that here on the market cap dominance chart. If we go back to the start of last year, you can kind of see this point, right, where we almost got to that flip. we got very close. Basically it was, almost neck and neck. Bitcoin was down to 39% of the market and Ethereum was up to 33%, right? And we did get close a little bit again, but in the grand scheme of things, I can actually kind of see that happening potentially in the near future. Maybe by the summer or so again, where we test that boundary to see if Ethereum wants to actually take over as the larger of the two, and just in terms of market cap, not necessarily in terms of anything else. I don't think Ethereum's at the point yet where it's going to start being the primary trading pair. I think it's possible down the line, but not quite yet. And similarly, Litecoin kind of did the same thing last year, right? So here's the Litecoin daily chart. Again, it's Coinbase, so kind of ignore the weird wicks. I don't know why this happened so much with Coinbase. But anyway, looking at Litecoin, same time period, and it kind of had this nice little run up to around 0.02. Now, obviously, that's sort of where we're at right now with Litecoin in terms of its current price. It's at 0.018, 0.019. But the primary thing to look at with Litecoin is actually that this 0.02 has been really firm resistance on Litecoin almost since its inception, and we kind of did break it for really the longest period of time. You can see there's been these little pop-ups over it, and they've been for a day, and that's been it. We actually held over 0.02 for the first time ever for almost 2 weeks before this recent little correction and then bull run of Bitcoin, which kind of brought it back down. But I actually think there's a good chance that Litecoin's going to break over this mark and probably push up towards that 0.03 area, maybe even further. So I similar to Bowen, am very bullish on Litecoin in the medium to long term. It just seems like Litecoin's ready for that type of move. It's been stuck in this same realm for so long. It's just ready to see that kind of move. And then actual altcoins we're going to look at here a little bit. So we're going to start with my baby Po. And you can kind of see there's not a lot of actual support here as far as Po goes on the daily chart. There's not even much on the 4-hour. When Po is having its primary bull run back in December, it really just kind of blew right through this area. It just went straight from 200 sats up to 1200 in almost 2 days. It was very similar to the moves of like TRX and those types of coins. So basically though, if we look at like the daily chart on Po, and you're gonna see this with a lot of the alts I'm gonna kind of go over here. What we are sitting on is some nice fib support right here, and that's not to say necessarily that this is going to hold. There's a good chance that these coins do keep breaking down more. But we're starting to get towards the bottom, and we definitely are starting to get towards the bottom, and that much is pretty obvious, right? So if you look at some indicators, I mean, you could see Stochar RSI on Po has been basically at zero for the better part of almost 2 weeks. We have to go back to, February 24th to see a point where Stoch was over zero. And even then, I mean, we're talking over zero by a hair. Standard RSI right here you can see is at 34. You can see VixFix has been triggering buys the last 3 days. Also of note would be that the last few times this has happened, where VixFix was triggering buys, the following moves were made. And I'm going to show you this similarly with some other coins, these types of moves that were made coming out of these types of market conditions. And then we'll look at some other ones here. So here's ADA, Cardano, same situation. Cardano, however, has a little bit more of a real support right here at around 2,500. This seems to be forming as really strong support. On top of that, though, if I'm not mistaken, we will draw it out, but it's basically fib support as well. A little bit lower than that. You could probably even start this move more like here, because this is really where the volume took off. And if you do, you can see it comes down to around 2537. So right at that 2,500 mark. And this is kind of the case across the market. Salt, very similar. It's got this nice straight line going here, and you can see the points 1, 2, 3, 4 where it's hit and bounced 5. And, there's a chance it comes down more to this 300 mark, which was the lowest it's been since listing on Binance. But in general, it just seems like it's getting ready to turn up. TRX is another similar situation and setup. I'm not sure how the fib looks on TRX, but we're going to find out in a second here. So TRX, the fib's a little weird on TRX, honestly. It's probably due to this crazy wick on that last big boom day. If you were to subtract that wick, does it get any better? Not really. But in general, you do have that strong support right here at around 400 sats, where we've seen this point, this point, this point all form a support and show a turn up. And eventually, you could see these turns up have been lesser and lesser, but eventually one of these is going to break over the last upward movement, and that'll be the real sign of a bull market. BNB is the same concept. You can actually see BNB right here is actually sitting on the super trend on the daily. But very similar concept. It's just sitting on this support, and it just seems like we're getting close to that bottom, Same thing. RSI is 41, Stoch is 25. It's just everything is looking low. It's really hard to find a coin that isn't looking like it's near the bottom. APPC is another one. This one is a little bit different. It doesn't really have much support because we're actually at an all-time low for it. And even super trend here is going to be a little bit not reliable simply because, there's not much history to go off of. But in general, you could see Stoch RSI is at 0. If we reset this a little bit so we can see MACD. The weird part here is that MACD is about to cross down, but again, it never really crossed up. It kind of just opened up and never had a chance to make real movements. So these types of indicators are going to be a little bit less reliable on a coin like this, and there's a lot of these around there that just haven't been listed long enough, right? Some of the other ones would be like INS. You can see I opened this, and because of the first wick, it's kind of crazy. But same exact concept, right? So there's just not enough to look at here. There's not enough history to see a MACD. You can see this with all of these. INS, IOST is probably very similar. Yep, same exact concept. You could see the MACD kind of never really had any crosses, and RSI has been 16 forever. So all of these coins are in the similar spot. All these newer listed ones that were kind of listed in like January, mid to late January, early February, they're a little bit harder to get a read on. But in general, the overall market kind of just looks like it's so oversold right now that it would make sense that now would be a period for things to start turning up. That's not to say that things can't keep bleeding out. Here's LRC. Little bit less of a similar situation, similar in the sense of Stoch and standard RSI being really oversold or undersold, but there's not really any support here as far as from a fib standpoint or, historical support. You're basically going candle by candle at this point. Maybe I could see around this area, around like 3,500 or so. But basically every single coin that we look at, this is going to be the same exact story. ELF maybe comes down to this support range here, but it could, same thing, turn around. You can kind of see just looking at the MACD oscillator on all of these too that it's starting to curl up. Everything's looking like it wants to start to curl up. So we'll see how that plays out over the next few days. Gut feeling would be that we're going to start to see at least a temporary reversal. I don't know about a full reversal, but at least a temporary reversal, right? At least some form of movement up. It's just everything's too oversold at this point. Eventually, people have to start buying back into the market, And then just looking at the rest of this stuff, right? If we kind of mute the primaries here, not those. If we mute the primaries here, if we mute Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin and Ripple, the ones that, obviously they're worth a lot, right? We don't need to be told they're worth a lot. You can kind of see the others section. And this is kind of just a showcase of, where market cap is at for altcoins in general. And it's just kind of been flat, And the reason it's been flat is partially a way of how these charts are calculated, because they're calculated on USD value, not Satoshi value, whereas every other coin is actually just calculated on, on Satoshi value. So it's a little bit harder. So you can kind of see this in the market cap if we look at the overall dominance Bitcoin versus alts, right? So you can kind of see this other section, this little white line here is every other altcoin, not including these primary ones. And I've kind of muted just the big ones just to kind of clean it up and make it a little bit more obvious as to what we're seeing here, right? So you can kind of see that Bitcoin has been reestablishing its dominance a little bit. And I would expect to see this line start to flatten out a little bit and curl up. Not to the levels that we saw where we went from, 11% for altcoins up to, 25% dominance. But I think we could get back to that 25% dominance for alts, which would be still a pretty nice overall market gain. And you have to take into account here, too, that this chart is based on USD, not Satoshi value. So in general, it's not completely accurate. Alts are not down 5% as a whole. They're down much more like 50-60% as a whole from the height. The difference being that the height was different in relationship to Bitcoin's value at that point. You know what I mean? So as Bitcoin rises, the alt's USD value kind of levels off more than you actually see on this chart, or rather than you actually see on Satoshi value. But I do expect the market to start to turn soon. It just seems oversold to the point of almost silliness at this point. Every chart you see me click on, you can kind of see that they're sitting on these support lines. So could they keep bleeding down? Yes. Would it be insane if they did? Yes, also, because just at some point, people are going to start buying them up. At some point, people are going to see the discounts on all the coins that they've been following and go, wow, this is a really good price. I'm going to buy in. And what'll happen is everybody will kind of start doing that at once. And I can kind of show you really quick as our last little point here on Digibyte, because this is a coin that I kind of followed a lot during the last altcoin run. So I can kind of show you what I mean at the very least. So Digibyte was one of those big runners, similar to, TRX or PO or any of those ones from last year during the big altcoin run back in May, right? So Digibyte obviously went up, whatever it was, I don't know, 2,000%, 3,000%, probably a little bit higher than this because, yeah. So anyway, it had this huge boom, and then as you can see, it kind of just timbered back down, right? And it went sideways for a month or two, and then what we started to see is we saw this little pop up, and I think we could start to see at least something more like this. I'm not saying we're going to return to our original values that we had back in December, but I do think we should at least see a week or so of bullish movement coming soon. It just seems like a natural thing that would happen right now. The market's just too oversold. And then, whether or not we'd see this movement back down to lower levels like we did with the past altcoin run remains to be seen. I do think that all of these altcoin runs are going to start maintaining their value better in the future. But that's something that kind of remains to be seen. But anyway, that's kind of the state of the market right now. I expect Bitcoin to kind of flag sideways, possibly a little bit more dip for a few more days, probably by, say, Tuesday, probably by Thursday, Friday, we pull back up out of this and we start to come back towards this 11.8 and retest this. Once we break this, though, that's when I start to see the market turning. So that's kind of our mark right now. And that's about it, guys. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this edition. I hope I didn't go on too long. I don't know how long this has been, but anyway, I'll see you guys next time.